In front of 40 people at Thanksgiving dinner, my mother yelled, "Pay the mortgage or be gone." My brother-in-law mocked, "Let's see how you get by." I packed my things, went to my new house, and ended every payment, every favor, and every dollar they ever received from me. My mom got right up in my face and told me I either pay the mortgage or disappear, and she did it loud enough for everyone to hear, right there in front of about 40 people at Thanksgiving dinner. My brother-in-law piled on too, grinning like it was entertainment, saying something like, "Let's see how you make it then." After that, I grabbed my stuff, drove back to my new place, and shut off every expense, every favor, every dollar I'd ever handed over to them. My name is Jake. I'm 33, a chiropractor running a small office that always smells like eucalyptus mixed with Tiger Balm. I'm the oldest kid, the fixer, the peacemaker, the guy who runs errands and quietly patches family problems with his own money. Most mornings I'm adjusting warehouse guys with wrecked backs, then staring at charts until my eyes feel fried. I'm the son who shows up, no matter what. Thanksgiving was supposed to be easy, just smile, pass the bread, and pretend years of financial help hadn't carved me out from the inside. I parked 2 blocks away because my sister Lauren's street was packed, the wind cutting through my jacket while I carried a pumpkin pie, 2 bottles of seltzer, and a heavy knot in my chest. Inside, the house was chaos, football blaring, a toddler wailing, foil crackling in the kitchen. I hugged my niece, gave my dad a nod, and kept moving, but Mom had already locked onto me. "Jake," she said, "I still on the sweet potatoes. The mortgage is due next week." I blinked and tried to play normal, said hi, wished her a happy Thanksgiving, but she wasn't in the mood. "Don't be smart," she said, "your sister's payment. You know she's behind since Evan's contract ended." Evan, the consultant brother-in-law, always one deal away, always drinking imported beer and preaching that success is all mindset. I set the pie down and told her we'd already talked and I was maxed out this month. The room went dead silent, like someone hit pause on everything, cousins, neighbors, even the pastor staring while Mom straightened up, face red, and snapped, "Pay the mortgage or disappear." It felt like getting slapped, sharp and final. Evan smirked from the couch, lifted his bottle without muting the game, and said, "Let's see how you survive, big man." Lauren stared at the floor, my dad hunched his shoulders like if he stayed small enough no one would notice him, and my ears burned as I asked, almost numb, if she was really saying this here. Mom stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, and said she was done whispering, that they carried me when I started that little bone-cracking hobby, and that I either paid or stayed away. I let out this short, ugly laugh. Evan slow clapped like I was a show, and the whole room watched while I braced my hands on the counter to keep from shaking. Somewhere a baby hiccuped. I said okay, real quiet, told them I got the message, grabbed my coat, the seltzer, the pie, and walked past folding chairs, past green beans, past people who only knew us from holiday cards. I didn't slam the door or give a speech. I sat in my car, forehead on the steering wheel, and felt something old and cold finally snap. But none of it really started that day. It never does. 5 years ago, I slowly turned into the family wallet. First it was a small ask, floating the electric bill until Friday, which never came. Then Lauren's car dying while Evan was between jobs, a couple thousand here. Then Mom's dental crown, Dad's tires before winter, Grandma's prescriptions, a cousin's school housing deposit, and on and on. I kept saying yes because it felt like love. My first year, I worked 2 clinics, one inside a gym and one out of a strip mall, packed my lunches, learned billing codes at 2 in the morning, said yes to every walk-in and weekend fare, smiled through exhaustion, and kept a spreadsheet called Family Loans filled with hopeful dates that turned into blank dashes. Mom basically managed my life without ever asking how my business was doing, only how much I could give that month, reminding me they supported me when I was nothing and that family helps family, while Dad stayed quiet unless someone needed a ride, calling that balance. Evan never asked straight up. He sent links to crypto, drop shipping, some bar in a town we don't live in, talking about how my brand would elevate things while treating my license like a logo. Lauren used to be my person, my teammate growing up, but after she married Charisma and had kids, her voice got smaller, full of "I hate asking but," and I hated that she had to say it. I tried setting limits, suggested budgeting apps, offered to go over numbers, even printed worksheets, But Evan laughed it off and Mom scolded me for being condescending, like cracking backs meant I was some computer guy. The worst part was the group chat. 23 people sharing casserole pics and gratitude memes until Mom would ask for a small bump. I'd ask how much. Evan would say $2,000. I'd say I couldn't. And suddenly Aunt Carol would chime in about how hard things are. Evan would joke about healthcare pay. And I'd cave with 600 just until Friday, which always turned into silence and another bill. I kept paying out of shame, because once, when I was $350 short on rent, Mom covered it and has told that story ever since like she bought my future, reminding everyone they carried me, as if that one check gave her lifetime access to my bank account. And it wasn't just money, it was my time too, because if I didn't lift a couch or fix Wi-Fi, I was too busy for family. If I skipped dinner, I thought I was better than them. And if I took a weekend away, I was accused of running from responsibility. When I bought a Subaru last year, the very first text from my mom was, "So now you can give more since your car won't break down," like reliability meant extra cash for them. When I posted a picture of the new adjusting table I'd dreamed about for years, Evan commented, "Must be nice," then added something about mortgages needing love too. Meanwhile, my clinic kept growing, slow but real, until that neon open sign actually meant something. A UPS driver sent his whole route my way. A preschool teacher brought cookies after I fixed her shoulder, and one older woman cried because she could finally turn her head again. People hugged me, people paid me, and I stacked those small wins until they added up to something that looked like a life. Then April came around and Evan asked for $5,000 as a bridge loan while a contract supposedly closed just 1 month. He said, even promised a return, sending me a PDF that looked like it was made in PowerPoint with arrows and the word synergy all over it. I said yes because Lauren told me she'd be evicted otherwise, because my mom said they'd be homeless, because my dad said nothing at all. The month came and went. The return never showed up, and Evan went quiet in the group chat while posting pictures in front of a rented BMW with captions about the grind never stopping. I felt stupid because I had been stupid. In May, I finally stopped saying yes. Started with small no's like "I can't this week" or "payroll's tight." And that's when Mom called me selfish, Evan called me fragile, Aunt Denise asked if I was still doing that spine thing, and Dad told me not to make waves. They planned Thanksgiving at Lauren's place. Mom asked me to bring mashed potatoes, then slipped in that we should settle December's mortgage early since I was the stable one. Even added a thumbs-up emoji like a receipt. I told myself I'd go, eat, and leave without drama. Then she said it, pay the mortgage or disappear, in front of 40 people, like I was a talking ATM. I didn't sleep that night, just sat at my kitchen table in the dark staring at my phone while the group chat lit up with messages about how I made a scene, how storming out was inappropriate, how I needed to man up, how Lauren just needed help this month, and we'd figure the rest out later. At 2:13 a.m., I stood up, went to my file cabinet, and pulled everything out: bank statements, Venmo history, the spreadsheet labeled family loans, exported it, highlighted totals, and printed a stack nearly an inch thick. 5 years of loans, bridges, and help added up to $72,480, not counting groceries, mystery Amazon charges, gas, or upgraded birthday gifts so the kids wouldn't feel the squeeze. I added dates and notes beside each transfer. Evan contract no repayment. Mom crown no repayment. Lauren mortgage hold with only $300 paid back, meaning I'd recovered just $1,050 out of more than $72,000. I took photos of receipts, including the $5,000 sent to Synergy Holdings LLC, an LLC Evan registered using our childhood address, the time I paid their property taxes to stop a lien, and the fridge I bought that somehow became the family fridge in every retelling. At 3:41 a.m., I wrote a short message in my notes saying I loved them, but I was done being a bank. No more loans, no co-signing, no bill paying, no temporary help, no access to my accounts. My clinic and income were my choice, and if they spoke to me, it needed to be respectful or not at all. I sent it to myself first, slept maybe 3 hours, then brewed coffee so strong it hurt, and put on my clinic polo even though it was Saturday. I drove to Lauren's house, which was quiet and messy with foil pans and toys everywhere, found Evan on the couch with a controller in his hand, and without looking up he barked mortgage. Mom came down the hall, tight-lipped, saying she was glad I'd come to my senses, but I told her I'd come to return something, and set the stack of papers on the table. Evan paused the game. The house felt like it took a breath, and Mom laughed when she flipped the first page and asked what it was. I told her it was $72,480, 5 years of keeping this family afloat, and she rolled her eyes and said not to be dramatic while Evan leaned over the stack asking why I kept receipts like that was weird. I told them it was because they'd told everyone I'd done nothing, and because my own mother told me to pay or disappear in front of 40 people. Lauren stood in the doorway holding my niece, hair a mess, eyes wide and exhausted, and I said softly that I was done. Evan laughed and said I wasn't serious, but I told him I was, that there would be no more money, no cosigns, no doctor bills, no Venmos, nothing. Mom went ice cold and accused me of putting my niece on the street, but I told Lauren I wouldn't do that. I just wouldn't finance Evan's contracts anymore, and if they wanted a real plan we could look at bills, sell the BMW, cut streaming services, call the bank, or downsize. Evan laughed at the idea of selling the BMW, so I reminded him it was leased in my name with 3 missed payments and repossession coming, which made his jaw twitch. Mom slammed the papers and asked how dare I bring my little math into her house, and I told her I was bringing it into reality, into what they'd taken from me, my future, my sleep, my body. Evan puffed his chest and asked if I thought I was better because I pressed on people's backs all day, and I smiled and said honest work mattered to me. He tried to win the stare down, but it didn't work anymore, and I slid one simple list across the table outlining canceling the BMW, selling the jet skis, downgrading phones, removing me from autopay, calling the mortgage company, and Evan getting a real job today. Mom scoffed that they weren't laborers, and I nodded and said then they'd be tenants with a notice on the door. She told me to get out if I wouldn't help, so I raised my hands, said okay, and turned to Lauren to tell her I was still her brother, that if she wanted a plan not built on me she could call, but if she wanted someone else to keep bailing them out, she should call the Godfather. I gave Evan a short nod on my way out, and he muttered that I'd come crawling back, to which I told him I'd be busy because I was moving that weekend, and when Mom snapped asking where, I said my house, watching her eyes narrow as she realized I'd bought one without telling anyone. I didn't explain, just grabbed my coat and left, because the house itself isn't anything fancy anyway, just 2 bedrooms, a crooked fence, and a maple tree that dumps leaves like a confetti cannon every fall, with peeling paint, a kitchen light that hums, and a ceramic frog tucked under the porch steps by the previous owner like either a curse or a blessing. I closed on it a week before Thanksgiving and kept it to myself because I wanted one thing in my life that wasn't a group project. After I left Lauren's place, I drove straight there, carried in 3 boxes, a toolbox, and a stubborn sense of peace, slept that first night on an air mattress in the living room listening to the fridge click, put my phone on Do Not Disturb, woke up at 5, made coffee, and wrote out a budget on the back of an envelope listing mortgage, utilities, groceries, clinic payroll, taxes, savings, and then family at $0, which looked wrong on paper but felt right in my chest. At the clinic, I pinned up holiday hours, added a couple chair massages on Saturdays to bring in extra cash because my body knows how to work, called my supplier to negotiate cheaper tape, canceled Spotify Premium, and kept my gym membership because my back is basically my retirement plan. The backlash rolled in like a storm, with Mom calling from different numbers saying I was punishing everyone, that Grandma was ashamed, that family is forever, and that I'd regret this when I needed help, none of which I saved. Evan sent voice memos full of swagger and zero plan, asking if a little house made me a man, promising I should pay December and he'd triple it in January, then threatening I'd be blocked from opportunities when he made it, and finally declaring we were done, all of which I dropped into a folder labeled evidence. Aunt Denise posted vague stuff on Facebook about young people abandoning family values, which I ignored, while people who actually knew me texted that they were proud, and people who didn't offered advice I never asked for. Lauren texted late the second night saying she was sorry, then that she was exhausted, then nothing until after 2 when she sent a photo of a notice from the bank, which I stared at for a long time before replying that I'd sit with her the next day, and we'd make a plan without Evan's projects and without my money, and she reacted with a heart instead of asking for cash. On day 3, Mom showed up at my clinic, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed and lips tight, while my front desk girl Lila looked at me like she might need backup and I shook my head as Mom scanned the lobby. The white chairs, the succulents that somehow stay alive, and said it was nice, probably paid for with their sacrifices. A patient walked out with an ice pack around his neck and nodded about his next appointment while Mom kept her voice low and said I embarrassed her and made her look like a beggar, and I told her she'd said pay or disappear, that she'd meant it, and that I was respecting the boundary she set, which made her flinch like the word itself was an insult. She said people were talking. I said let them, and when she said they raised me, I told her they did and I was done paying for it. Watching her look down for a moment like she was just a woman clutching her purse too tight before whispering that they couldn't lose the house. I told her then she had to make cuts, sell the extra TV, cancel the 2 gym memberships she doesn't use, have Evan get a job, and call the mortgage company to tell the truth because there are programs. And when she said he wouldn't, I told her then he doesn't live there and that it was her choice, which made her snap that I shouldn't talk about her son-in-law. So I said I was talking about her daughter, the mother of her grandkids, drowning while her husband posts grind quotes. She tried the old line about believing in me when I was a nobody, and I told her I was never a nobody. I was her son, and then she left with a quiet click instead of a slam. I went back to work, ran my thumbs along paraspinals, asked about water intake, had a guy cry on my table because his shoulder finally stopped hurting and say I saved him, and I told him he did the exercises, both of us pretending we were just talking about shoulders. That weekend I unsubscribed from 3 family streaming plans, changed my Amazon password, closed the joint Costco card Mom had opened with my social years ago for convenience, and had the bank remove my name as a backup on their checking, with the banker warning they wouldn't like it and me saying they already didn't. I deleted the Family First group chat after muting it just turned into doom scrolling and started a new one called Reality, First with me, Lauren, and my cousin Jess who actually shows up, the rules baked right into the name. We made a shared Google sheet with Lauren's bills, sold what we could like the second stroller, the juicer they used twice, and extra dining chairs, while Evan refused to help and called it bad optics. On Tuesday, the BMW vanished from their driveway. Evan posted a story about haters trying to keep him down with a rap song tagged, and Lauren texted me they took it, to which I replied good. At my place, I did boring things that felt rebellious, installing a low-flow shower head, eating eggs and salsa over the sink, sweeping leaves off the porch and finding that ceramic frog again, which made me laugh for the first time in a week. I FaceTimed a patient's kid to show him my toolbox because he wants to be a fixer doctor, slept without clenching my jaw, and 2 weeks and got a single text from Mom asking about dinner Sunday. Just us. I stared at it, typed back that dinner worked with the ground rule of no money talk and no insults, and that I'd leave if it turned, and she replied okay. Sunday I brought roasted chicken because peace needs protein. Dad watched muted football. Mom put out pumpkin placemats, and for 30 minutes we talked about the weather until minute 31 when Mom started to say, "It was just that your sister." I stood up, folded my napkin onto the plate, kissed her on the head, and told her I loved her and I'd see her next time. Then I walked out. I drove home with the radio turned down low and realized the world didn't end. Life kept going, and my clinic kept growing quietly around the edges of that new calm. I added a 20-minute desk worker reset special, and it sold out fast. I hired a part-time massage therapist. I took my first Friday afternoon off in 3 years and wandered through a hardware store with no list, just because I could. One morning Mallory texted me that she had an interview that day for a receptionist job at a dental office and asked me to pray, and I texted back that I was already proud of her. That afternoon she sent a selfie wearing a blazer we'd bought for $14.99 at the thrift store, and I sat on my porch until my coffee went cold, letting that kind of joy settle into spaces that used to feel hollow. Thanksgiving came back around the way it always does, quietly, and then all at once, but this time I hosted. It was small and simple, just my clinic manager Lila, my cousin Jess, and my gym friend Marcus who doesn't have family nearby. Mallory came with the kids, carrying store-bought rolls and an apology in her eyes she didn't need to explain. Ryan was on a business trip, which is what he calls hanging out with men who say bro a lot in restaurants. We ate at my wobbly table on mismatched chairs I'd found on Facebook Marketplace. The turkey a little dry, the mashed potatoes perfect, and the kids made place cards that said Dr. Chase covered in way too many stickers. Halfway through dessert my phone buzzed with a message from Mom saying they were doing dessert and my aunt wanted to know if I was stopping by, and I felt that old panic rise and then fade like a wave breaking. I typed back wishing her a happy Thanksgiving, told her I was hosting, and suggested coffee the following week, and after the 3 little dots she replied okay, and said she was proud of my house, which loosened something in me even though I didn't cry. After everyone left, I washed the dishes slowly while the house smelled like cinnamon and garlic, and the ceramic frog sat on the windowsill wearing a paper crown my niece had taped onto its head. I thought about that first night alone at my kitchen table counting money I no longer gave away, about being told to pay or disappear, and about the quiet that followed when I disappeared from the version of family that fed on me. Here's what I learned, and it doesn't need poetry to hold up. Saying no isn't betrayal, it's a boundary. Family helps family doesn't mean one person funds everyone while getting insulted for it. Receipts aren't petty, they're clarity. The people who love you will adjust to your limits, and the people who loved your lack of limits will call those boundaries cruel. And you're allowed to build a life where your work supports you and your peace protects you. Mallory still texts me photos of her desk at the dental office sometimes, a little plant, a fresh calendar, and she sounds tired in the good way, the proud way, and we still do budgets, still cut costs, still say no, because the house is theirs to keep or lose by their choices, not mine to float. Mom is learning a slower, gentler language now, and she slips sometimes, starting to say we carried you before stopping and trying again to say you worked hard, and I can live in that messy middle as long as the insults stay gone. We meet for coffee in public places where money isn't a character at the table. Dad asked me once if I could look at his shoulder, and I said yes. And when he tried to hand me cash, I told him to call the clinic and book like everyone else, which surprised him enough that he actually did, left a 5-star Google review, and wrote that I'm good, which was more honest than most things he's said in years. Ryan still sends links and talks about investments I don't click on, tells me I'll regret cutting myself off, and I tell him I hope he finds an employer who appreciates his energy, then mute him and sleep just fine. When I lock up my clinic at night, I pause and breathe in the eucalyptus and the faint heat from the dryers. Think about every person who walked out standing a little straighter, and about the first $350 my mom once lent me, and how expensive that story became to carry. I paid it back, with interest, with years, with my backbone, and I'm done. My name is Chase. I'm the oldest. I'm a chiropractor. I'm not a bank. I'm not a villain. I'm just a man who finally looked at his own life and decided it was worth paying for on purpose. If you're reading this and your family swipes your love like a card, here's the line that saved me. I love you, and I won't fund you. Say it once, say it again, say it quietly, and walk away if they turn cruel. My mother once shouted in my face to pay the mortgage or disappear, and I disappeared from being their wallet and reappeared inside my own life. And it turns out surviving wasn't the hard part at all. Living was, and now I do.